Welcome to tonight's sleep story. This is your gentle time to unwind, to let go, and to drift slowly into a peaceful night's sleep. Before we begin, take a deep breath in and slowly breathe out. Let all the noise of the day fade away. Feel your body getting lighter, softer, calm. Now tell me, what time is it in your country? What time are you listening to this sleep story? Whether it's early midnight or late morning where you are, this is your time to relax, to rest, to dream. Tonight's story is a modern fairy tale, set in the sparkling heart of New York City, where love finds its way between royal gates and city lights. It's a story of a princess who falls in love with a poor man, a love that faces storms, silence, and time. But in the end, it heals everything. So gently close your eyes. Let your mind slow down and let my voice carry you toward sleep. Because this story is not just about love. It's about peace, forgiveness, and finding home inside your heart. Let's begin. The Princess and the Poor Man, a sleep story from New York. Welcome, dear listener. Welcome to another night, another story, another dream. As you lie down, close your eyes and let the city sounds fade. This story will carry you far above the noise into a world where love still feels magical. Take a slow breath in and exhale all the weight of your day. Now listen closely. Once upon a time, in the heart of New York City, there stood a palace of glass, not like the castles of old, but tall, shining, and crowned with light that touched the clouds. Inside that tower lived Princess Alina, the only daughter of King Edward, a man whose power ruled not lands but empires of business, media, and money. People called him the King of New York. Alina's life sparkled: diamonds, dresses, cameras, and fame. But behind her smile was silence. She had friends, followers, and fortune, but not freedom. One rainy night, when the city streets glowed with reflections of light, Alina's car broke down near a small coffee shop in Brooklyn, a place her father would never let her go. The bodyguards waited outside as she stepped in, just for warmth, just for a moment of quiet. That's where she met him, Liam, a young man with tired eyes and gentle hands, serving coffee behind the counter. He didn't know who she was. He just saw a girl, soaked from the rain, holding her coat close, shivering, yet smiling politely. "Rough night?" he asked softly. Alina laughed, her voice like soft piano keys. "You could say that." He handed her a cup of hot chocolate. No charge, no questions, no judgment. Just warmth. In that simple moment, between the hum of the coffee machine and the quiet patter of rain, a spark was born. Not loud, not wild, but gentle, glowing, like the first star above the New York skyline. Alina didn't know his name then. He didn't know hers. But sometimes hearts meet before the words ever do. And that night, as she drove away, she looked back once through the car window and saw him still standing there, watching the rain fall, and maybe, just maybe, thinking about her too. Asterisk, the next morning, the city woke up in its usual rhythm, taxis honking, lights flashing, people running, dreams chasing dreams. But inside the glass palace on Fifth Avenue, Princess Alina couldn't escape one thought. The boy from the coffee shop. She sat by her window, watching the sunrise spill across the skyline, and in her mind, she still saw his eyes, tired but kind. His voice, soft yet certain, and the warmth of that one cup of hot chocolate he gave without a word. Her father, King Edward, entered the room, tall, commanding, always busy. His voice echoed with decisions and orders. Alina, the board meeting starts at noon. Your presence will remind them who you are. She smiled faintly, hiding the restlessness behind her royal grace. Yes, Father, she said softly, but deep down, her heart was no longer in that world of suits, meetings, and diamonds. It was somewhere else, maybe in Brooklyn, maybe behind a counter that smelled of roasted coffee and rain. That evening, as the city lights returned, she slipped on a simple coat. No diamonds, no guards. Just Alina, not the princess, not the heir, just a girl chasing a memory. The streets were alive with music and chatter. She walked past graffiti walls, street musicians, and food carts until she found it, Liam's coffee corner. The bell above the door jingled as she stepped in. Liam looked up, surprised. You again, he said, smiling softly. Did the rain bring you back? She smiled. Maybe it did. Or maybe the hot chocolate. He laughed, that quiet, honest laugh that sounded like home. They talked that night. About dreams, about the city, about the strange way loneliness hides behind smiles. He told her how he worked 2 jobs to care for his mother. She told him she loved painting, though her father thought it a waste of time. Time passed softly. The clock ticked. The rain drummed. The world outside blurred, and inside, 2 hearts began to find a rhythm of their own. When Alina left, the city felt different. The lights seemed warmer, the noise softer, and in her chest, something gentle, something new, a feeling she hadn't known before. That night, as she lay in bed, she whispered to herself before sleep claimed her. Why does his voice still echo in my heart? And far away in Brooklyn, Liam looked out the window of his tiny apartment, watching the stars hidden behind New York clouds, and whispered to who was she, really? Asterisk, days turned into weeks, and New York kept spinning, bright, restless, alive. But somewhere between skyscrapers and subways, two souls had found a secret rhythm of their own. Every evening, when the city softened under streetlights, Princess Alina would leave her world of gold and enter Liam's world of warmth. No crown, no guards, just a coat, a smile, and the smell of coffee. Liam began to notice the little things about her. The way she tilted her head when she laughed. The way her eyes lingered on paintings hung in the shop. And the sadness that sometimes slipped into her silence. "Alina," he asked one night, "you never told me what you do." She looked down at her cup, watching the steam rise like secrets floating away. "I work with my father," she said softly. "He owns a few companies in the city." Liam smiled. "So you're one of the lucky ones." She smiled too, but her heart ached. If only he knew how trapped Lucky could feel. That night, when she returned to the palace, King Edward was waiting in the marble hallway. "Where have you been?" His voice was sharp, echoing through the gold and glass. Alina froze. "Just out for some air." "Air," he snapped. "At midnight, in Brooklyn." She looked at him, startled. "How do you?" "I know everything that concerns this family," he interrupted. His tone softened, but his eyes stayed cold. "You are a princess, Alina. Your face is in magazines, your name on every screen. You cannot roam the streets like an ordinary girl." Alina's throat tightened. "I don't want to be a name, father. I want to be a person." He stared at her for a long moment, then turned away, his voice heavy with control. "You will stay in the palace for the next few days. And Alina," he paused, "whatever or whoever is out there, it ends now." When he left, the silence in her room was unbearable. The walls felt higher, the air thinner. She looked at her reflection, a princess trapped behind glass, down in Brooklyn. Liam waited that night, looking toward the door that never opened. He didn't know why she hadn't come, only that the city suddenly felt colder. He whispered to himself, maybe she was just passing through. Maybe that's all it was. But deep down, both of them knew something had begun that couldn't just end. Because love, real love, doesn't need permission. It just waits, quietly, like a secret under the New York moon. The morning came quietly, but Alina didn't rise with her usual grace. Her heart felt heavy, like a song cut short. The echo of her father's words still lingered, cold, sharp, unbending. She walked to her window, watching the city move freely beneath her, millions of people going wherever they wished. And she, a princess, could not even cross a bridge. For 2 days, she stayed inside. No calls, no visits to Brooklyn, no laughter, just silence, and the sound of her heart remembering his voice. On the third night, she made a choice. A quiet, trembling, but powerful choice. She wrapped a scarf around her hair, pulled on a plain coat, and slipped out through the servants' elevator. Her heart beat louder than her footsteps. Outside, the night air was crisp, carrying the hum of the city and a whisper of freedom. She hailed a cab, and when the driver asked, "Where to, miss?" she smiled softly and said, "Brooklyn." The coffee shop was nearly empty when she arrived. Liam stood, wiping the counter, lost in thought. When he saw her, his eyes widened, surprise, relief, and something else. Something deeper. "You came back," he said, quietly. "I thought I scared you away." Alina shook her head, smiling gently. "No, I was kept away." Something in her tone told him not to. Instead, he poured her a cup of coffee, and they sat in silence for a while, listening to the rain tap softly against the windows. Finally, Liam spoke. "Who are you, Alina, really?" Her hand froze on the cup. For a long moment, she didn't answer. Then, with a small, steady breath, she said, "I'm someone my father doesn't want me to be." He looked at her, trying to read the truth behind her words. But instead of pressing, he said softly, "Whoever that is, I like her." That broke the walls inside her. A tear escaped, shining like a tiny crystal in the dim light. He reached out, just his hand. No words, and she placed hers in his. It was a simple touch, but in that touch was everything she'd ever wanted. Freedom, kindness, love. Outside, the rain slowed. The city seemed to sigh with them, as if even New York paused to witness something rare. For the first time, Alina didn't feel like a princess. She just felt human. And it was the most beautiful feeling she'd ever known. The following week passed like a dream, fragile, beautiful, and dangerous. Every night, Alina escaped her father's world of marble and gold to meet Liam in his world of coffee and calm. They walked under streetlights, shared stories about their childhoods, laughed like children again. Sometimes they sat by the Hudson River, watching reflections of skyscrapers ripple like stars in the water. Alina painted again on paper napkins, walls, anything she could find. Liam watched her, always amazed. "You paint like your heart is speaking," he told her one night. She smiled. "Maybe it is. But love, even in the heart of New York, can't stay hidden for long." One afternoon, King Edward received a call. A reporter had spotted the princess, disguised in plain clothes, walking hand in hand with a man from Brooklyn. The headline hit the tabloids the next morning: "Princess of New York in secret romance." The king's fury was quiet, controlled, the most dangerous kind. He didn't shout. He simply said, "Find out who he is." By evening, his men had the report. Liam Carter, 26 years old. Lives in a one-room apartment. Works at a coffee shop. No family wealth. No connections. No title. The king's hand trembled slightly as he held the file. A poor man. A nobody. He called for Alina. She entered his office, calm but alert. The city lights glowed behind him like judgment. "Alina," he began, "you've disappointed me deeply." Her heart dropped. "You know." "I know everything," he said coldly. A princess walking with a commoner, hand in hand through dirty streets. Beneath cameras and gossip, do you understand what that does to our name? Alina's voice quivered but didn't break. "Father, he's kind. He's good. He treats me like what?" "Like a human," she whispered. The silence that followed was heavy, sharp as glass. The king stood slowly, eyes hard. "This ends tonight." When she didn't answer, he added quietly, "If you see him again, Alina, I will make sure he never works in this city again." Her breath caught. "You wouldn't," he turned away, voice firm and final. "I would do whatever it takes to protect my empire." That night, Alina sat by her window, tears slipping quietly down her face as the city lights blurred. In the distance, somewhere beyond the river, Liam waited, not knowing the storm that had begun. She wanted to run to him. She wanted to tell him everything, but all she could do was whisper into the night, "I won't give up on you." And somewhere in the city, Liam looked at the sky, feeling the same ache in his chest, as if their hearts were still speaking, even through silence. Asterisk, the days that followed were heavy, quiet, and full of waiting. The palace halls felt colder. Every echo of footsteps reminded Alina of her father's warning. His voice like a chain around her heart. But love doesn't listen to fear. It listens to longing, and Alina's heart refused to sleep without hearing Liam's voice again. So, one night, when the moon hung low over New York City, she slipped away once more, a shadow beneath the glow of streetlights. Her heart beat fast, not with fear this time, but with the kind of courage that love brings when nothing else matters. When she reached the coffee shop, Liam was closing up, wiping the tables one last time. The bell over the door chimed softly. He looked up and froze. Alina. Her name came out like a prayer. Before he could speak again, she ran to him, and in that small space between them, time stopped. "I had to see you," she whispered. "My father found out. He threatened you." Liam frowned. "Threatened me? Why?" "Because he thinks love is something to control. He said, if I see you again, he'll destroy your life." Liam took a step closer, his voice steady. "He can take my job, Alina. He can take everything I own. But he can't take what I feel." Her eyes shimmered with tears. In that tiny coffee shop, surrounded by the soft hum of the city, she felt safer than she'd ever felt in her palace of gold. "Liam, I don't know what to do," she whispered. He brushed a tear from her cheek, his fingers trembling just slightly. "Then don't decide tonight," he said softly. "Just be here." For now, they stood together, hands entwined. While outside, the rain began to fall, gentle, forgiving, endless. For a while, they talked about everything and nothing, her dreams, his mother's health, the way New York looked from the bridge at night. And when the clock struck midnight, they both knew it was time to part again. Before she left, Liam said, "Alina, no matter what your father does, don't let him turn your heart cold." She looked up at him, her voice barely a breath. "I won't. Not as long as I know you're somewhere beneath the same sky." He smiled. But behind that smile was worry. Because he knew the king was a man who always got what he wanted. And this time, what he wanted was to end their love, no matter the cost. As Alina disappeared into the night, Liam watched her go, whispering into the empty air, "Whatever happens, I'll fight for you." But even as he said it, a black car watched quietly from across the street, one of the king's men inside, reporting every move. The storm was no longer coming. It had already begun. The next morning, Brooklyn was quiet, too quiet. The sun rose slowly over the rooftops, and Liam stepped out of his apartment, ready to walk to the coffee shop like every other day. But something felt wrong. Two men in black suits stood by the door. They didn't smile. They didn't move aside. "Liam Carter?" one of them asked. Liam nodded slowly. "Yeah, can I help you?" The taller one handed him a letter sealed with a gold crest, a symbol Liam had seen once before. On the necklace Alina always wore. He unfolded it with shaking hands. The words were few, but cold as ice. "This relationship is over. Stay away from Princess Alina. Any further contact will result in consequences, both legal and personal." Just the king's insignia, sharp, powerful, final. Liam's chest tightened. He looked up at the men. "Tell him, I don't care who he is. I won't stop loving her." The shorter man stepped closer, voice low and threatening. "You will, or you'll regret it." And just like that, they were gone, leaving the letter fluttering in the wind, like a broken promise. At the same time, in the glass palace, Alina sat across from her father at breakfast. The table was long, covered in silver and silence. "Father," she began carefully, "please don't hurt him." The king didn't look up. He was warned. If he has sense, he'll walk away. Her voice trembled. You can't destroy someone just because they love me. Finally, he looked at her eyes like stone, voice like thunder, hidden beneath calm. Love doesn't feed empires, Alina. It doesn't keep reputations clean or fortunes safe. Then maybe I don't want your empire. She cried, I just want to be free. The king's face softened for just a heartbeat. Then, quietly, he said, freedom is an illusion, my dear. You'll understand one day. He rose and left, his footsteps echoing like final words. That night, Alina tried to call Liam, but his number had been disconnected. She went to the coffee shop, but the door was locked, the lights dark. Her heart sank. He was gone. The only thing left was a note taped to the glass from inside. The ink was smudged by rain, but she could still read the words. They came for me. Don't worry, I'll find a way back to you. Tears blurred her vision. She pressed her hand against the window, whispering into the night, come back to me. Liam, please, come back. And as she stood there beneath the glowing city lights, alone yet full of hope, the wind carried her whisper through the streets of New York, a promise the night itself seemed to keep. Asterisk. The city lights flickered behind Liam as he packed a single suitcase. Brooklyn hummed outside his window. Taxis, sirens, rain, the heartbeat of New York. But tonight, that heartbeat sounded like goodbye. He glanced once more at the photo on his desk. Alina laughing under the fairy lights of the pier, her hair catching the glow of the skyline. He touched the edge of the photo gently, as if touching her face through memory. Then came the knock. 3 sharp raps. He didn't need to ask who it was. Liam, open up, a familiar voice whispered. It was Mira's childhood friend, a journalist with more secrets than anyone in the city. She slipped inside, quickly, eyes wide. You can't stay here. They're watching you. I know, he said quietly. They told me to leave her. Mira's voice softened. Then leave. Live. Sometimes you have to step back to find another way forward. He zipped his bag and took one last look around his apartment. Every wall, every book, every little piece of his simple life, it all reminded him of her. But he had to go. As the taxi pulled away from the curb, he whispered to himself, New York made us. Maybe it will bring us back together. Back in the glass palace, Alina's world had turned into a golden cage. The king had doubled the security, restricted her phone, and even announced her upcoming engagement to a foreign prince she'd never met. Her voice echoed through the marble hall. You can't force me to marry him. Her father didn't even flinch. You'll do what's best for this family. Your feelings are temporary. Legacy is forever. Alina turned away, eyes burning. She didn't shout. She didn't cry. She just whispered, "You underestimate love, Father." That night, she sat by her window, watching the city glitter like 1,000 tiny hearts beating. Somewhere out there, she knew Liam was looking at the same sky. She pulled a notebook toward her and began to write. Each word, a secret message. Each page, a plan. If she couldn't reach him now, she'd find another way. A way no guards, no walls, no crown could stop. A week later, in a small town outside New York, Liam started working at a repair shop. The world was quieter here, too quiet for his restless heart. Every night, he would walk to the old bridge, look out at the city skyline far in the distance, and imagine her voice on the wind. But one night, as the wind rustled through the trees, he found something tied to the bridge railing. A ribbon, golden, familiar. He untied it slowly, and a note fluttered free. "I know you're out there. Don't give up. I'm coming for you." He smiled for the first time in days, because that ribbon wasn't just a message. It was a spark, and from that moment on, he knew the story of Liam and Alina wasn't over. It was only just beginning. Asterisk, the morning sun spilled like gold over the Hudson River, painting everything in warmth except the palace. Inside the royal hall, silence shattered when the king heard the news. "She's gone." His voice echoed like thunder. The guards bowed low, trembling. "No trace, Your Majesty. We found her window open and her carriage missing." The king's eyes narrowed. "Find her now. I want every officer in this city looking for my daughter." He turned toward the window, gazing at the skyline of New York. His reflection stared back, proud, furious, afraid. He wasn't just losing control of his daughter. He was losing control of the story, far from the palace. In a small rooftop apartment in Brooklyn, Alina and Liam sat wrapped in a single blanket, watching the sunrise through foggy glass. The city below roared with life, but up here it was quiet, like a heartbeat between dreams. Liam handed her a steaming mug of coffee. "Welcome to my kingdom," he said softly. She smiled, brushing his hand. "I like your kingdom better. No guards, no crowns, just us." They laughed, the kind of laughter that comes after too many tears. But deep inside, both knew it couldn't last forever. The world below them was waking up, and soon it would come knocking. That evening, Mira arrived with news. She had seen posters everywhere. "Missing princess, reward, $1 million. They're looking everywhere," she said. "Airports, subways, bridges. Liam, they'll find you both." Liam's jaw tightened. "Then we'll go where even the city can't follow." "Where?" Mira asked. He turned to Alina. The old bookshop in Queens, remember? The one near the train yard. My friend owns it. He owes me a favor. Alina nodded. If this was the cost of love, she was willing to pay that night. As the city's lights shimmered below, the two of them slipped through narrow alleys, hand in hand, shadows among shadows. Rain began to fall again, soft, rhythmic, like the city itself was whispering them forward. At a red light, Alina turned to him and smiled. Do you think your love can really fight my father's power? Liam looked at her, his eyes calm, his voice sure. No, but it can't outlast it. And just like that, they disappeared into the sleeping veins of New York, two stars falling together through the storm, ready to rewrite their destiny. Asterisk, New York never truly slept, it only dreamed in motion. Subway trains hummed beneath the streets. Rain washed over the neon lights, and hidden in the quiet corners, two souls ran from the world that refused to let them be. Alina and Liam found shelter in the old bookshop in Queens, a forgotten place tucked between two tall brick buildings. Its sin creaked in the wind, letters faded but proud, the paper heart. Inside, dust floated like soft snow. Books leaned against one another like sleepy friends. The smell of old paper and coffee wrapped them in peace. The owner, Mr. Rivera, Liam's friend, was a man with kind eyes and a secret past. He didn't ask questions, only smiled. Hide as long as you need. Love stories always find a way. For the first time in days, they felt safe enough to breathe. But safety in New York was an illusion. By midnight, the King's men had tracked Alina's phone signal to Brooklyn. They were close, too close. And though Alina had left her phone behind, the King's anger was faster than logic. He wanted control, not his daughter's happiness. Search every street, every shadow, he ordered. She's not just my child, she's the future of this throne. But deep down, even he knew it wasn't the throne she wanted. It was freedom. At the bookshop, Alina sat by the window, watching the rain drip through the cracked glass. Her hand brushed against Liam's. Do you ever wonder, she whispered, what life would have been like if I weren't a princess? He smiled faintly. You'd still be you. The same girl who laughs too loudly and reads the endings of books first because she's too curious to wait. She laughed softly, resting her head on his shoulder. Maybe in another world, we'd just be two strangers who met in a bookstore. In this world, he murmured, you're my everything. A car door slammed outside. Voices, heavy, determined. Liam froze. They found us. Mr. Rivera motioned toward the back. Go now, through the old tunnel behind the shop. It connects to the train yard. They ran, hearts pounding, rain soaking their clothes. Alina's long coat flared behind her like a storm cloud as they slipped into the darkness. Liam turned one last time and whispered, "We'll keep running until love wins." And as the thunder rolled across the sky, their silhouettes vanished into the pulse of New York. Two fugitives of the heart, carried forward by faith alone. Asterisk, the train yard stretched like a sleeping beast beneath the rain. Rusty tracks glimmered under flickering lamps, and old carriages stood still, silent witnesses of stories long forgotten. Alina and Liam crept between the trains, hands clasped, hearts racing. Every puddle mirrored their fear and their faith. They found an abandoned passenger car near the far edge of the yard. Inside, it smelled of metal, rain, and time, but it was dry, quiet, hidden from the world. Liam pulled the door closed, and for the first time since escaping, they both exhaled. Alina leaned against the window, watching droplets chase each other down the glass. Her reflection looked nothing like a princess, her hair tangled, her clothes dusty, yet her eyes glowed with a strange, wild peace. "Do you think they'll stop?" she whispered. Liam shook his head gently. "Kings don't stop, but love doesn't either." He smiled, tired but true. "We just have to last longer than his anger." Back at the palace, the king stood by his office window. The skyline spread before him like a kingdom of stars. He hadn't slept in days. Every plan, every law, every ounce of power he held, none of it could bring his daughter back. His advisor entered quietly. "Your Majesty, there's still no sign of her. The press is asking questions. The people are beginning to wonder." The king turned sharply. "Wonder what?" "That maybe the princess left because of love, not rebellion." The king's expression faltered for just a moment. He turned away, hiding the flicker of doubt in his eyes. He had ruled countries, conquered nations, but he could not command the heart of his child. In the train car, the night deepened. Liam lit a small lantern he'd found, and its golden glow painted the walls in warmth. Alina rested her head on his shoulder. The world outside roared with storm and chaos, but inside this little metal cocoon, there was peace, fragile, trembling, but real. "Do you ever get tired?" she asked softly. He looked at her and smiled. "Of running? Yes. Of loving you? Never." She closed her eyes, and for the first time in weeks, she drifted into sleep, deep, calm. DREAMLES. Liam stayed awake, watching her breathe. His thoughts quiet as the rain, and far away the king sat alone in his palace, staring at an old photograph, Alina as a child, laughing in his arms for the first time. He wondered if love wasn't his enemy, after all, but the only truth left. Asterisk, a pale dawn broke over New York, turning the gray clouds into soft ribbons of silver. The city yawned awake, taxis honking, vendors shouting, and somewhere in that endless heartbeat, a king dressed like a stranger stepped into the crowd. No royal guards followed, no glittering car, only a long coat, a worn hat, and a face that no one dared to recognize. For the first time in years, he walked without titles, without power, only as a father searching for his daughter. He passed through narrow streets, where children chased pigeons and life smelled of coffee and rain. He saw love everywhere, a boy giving his umbrella to a girl, an old couple sharing breakfast, and people laughing. Even with nothing, it struck him deeply. Perhaps his daughter had been right. Love wasn't weakness. It was freedom. By noon, the king reached Queens. He had traced faint rumors, a girl who looked like the princess, seen near an old bookshop called the Paper Heart. The door creaked as he stepped inside. The shelves were crooked, dust thick as memories. Mr. Rivera looked up from behind the counter. He knew that face, even beneath the disguise. "Can I help you, sir?" he asked carefully. The king nodded, his voice low. "I'm looking for someone." Mr. Rivera studied him for a long moment. Then he said softly, "Sometimes, when we look too hard, we miss what's right in front of us." The king frowned. "You know where she is." Mr. Rivera didn't answer. He only handed him a book. It was The Little Prince. Inside the first page, in neat handwriting, was a note. Love is not possession. It's the courage to let someone be free. He didn't ask anything else. He just walked out, his steps heavier than before. That night, the king stood on the Brooklyn Bridge. Wind howled through the metal rails, and the city shimmered below, 1,000 hearts beating in light. He looked toward Manhattan, toward the skyline where his daughter hid. And for the first time, he whispered into the wind, "Alina, maybe you were right." At that same hour, in the train yard, Alina and Liam watched the lantern flicker. Her head rested on his arm, her heart finally at peace. Neither of them knew that the king was just a few miles away. His anger turning slowly into longing, his pride melting into love. And though the city still roared outside, inside that old train car, time stood still, as if New York itself was holding its breath for what would come next. Asterisk. The night crept softly over the city, a deep blue sky brushed with gold lights, and the hum of New York whispering beneath it like a lullaby. The king moved through the shadows of Queens, guided only by instinct and a fading hope. He had followed faint traces a shopkeeper's glance, a cab driver's story, a golden ribbon found near the train yard fence, the same ribbon his daughter used to wear in her hair. His heart clenched. He knew he was close. The train yard stretched before him, silent and endless under the moonlight. Rusty trains stood like forgotten giants, and somewhere among them a flicker of light. He moved closer, quietly, his breath misting in the cold. Through a crack in one of the old train cars, he saw it, the faint glow of a lantern, and two shadows sitting close together, Alina and Liam. The king froze. Time slowed. His daughter's laughter floated softly into the night. The kind of laugh he hadn't heard since she was a child. It was free. It was real. And it broke him in ways power never could. He saw her lay her head on Liam's shoulder. Saw him tuck her hair behind her ear with gentle hands. There was no crown between them, no royal distance, just love. Honest and fragile and true. For a moment, the king wanted to call her name, but his voice stayed silent. Something inside him whispered, "If you love her, let her be." He turned away, his eyes glistening. The weight of years, of rules, of thrones, of pride pressed heavy on his heart as he walked back toward the city. His reflection passed through puddles of light, and he whispered to himself, maybe love isn't meant to obey. Maybe it's meant to set us free. Back inside the train car, Alina felt a strange calm, as if the world, for once, was not chasing them. She looked at Liam and smiled. "Do you think my father will ever forgive me?" Liam brushed her cheek softly. "Maybe one day he won't need to." And outside, in the distance, the king stood still for a long time, watching the stars shimmer over the city. For the first time, he didn't see rebellion. He saw love and realized it was the only thing he had ever truly wanted for her. Asterisk, the next morning dawned quietly, a misty, silver light curling over the city rooftops. The storm had passed, but the world still smelled of rain and new beginnings. In his penthouse, high above Manhattan, the king sat by the window, staring down at the city that had humbled him. On his desk lay the golden ribbon he had found near the train yard. He turned it slowly in his hand, its delicate threads gleaming like sunlight trapped in silk. He remembered Alina's laughter when she was 5, her tiny fingers holding his crown, asking, "Does being a king mean you can make everyone happy?" He had said yes. And now, all these years later, he finally understood how wrong he'd been. By mid-morning, his office filled with noise, guards reporting, ministers demanding, news screens flashing, princess still missing. Search expands statewide. But the king raised a hand. "End the search," he said quietly. The room went still. One guard stepped forward, confused. "Your Majesty." "But no," the king interrupted softly. "Let her live. Let her choose." The words hung in the air like fragile glass. No one dared to question him again. That night, in a hidden office beneath the palace, he made a single phone call. "Mr. Rivera," he said, "this is a friend of Alina's. Tell her she and the boy are safe. No one will look for them now." With silence on the line. Then Mr. Rivera's voice, soft and steady. "I thought you might say that, Your Majesty." The king exhaled deeply, eyes misting. "Just promise me one thing. Tell her I always wanted her to be happy. I just didn't know how to let her." Across the city, in the quiet of the train yard, Mr. Rivera arrived with warm food and a soft smile. Liam and Alina looked up in surprise. "I have news," he said, setting the basket down. "The search is over. The king has stopped everything." Alina's heart skipped. Stopped. Why? Mr. Rivera looked at her gently. "Because he loves you enough to let you go." Tears filled her eyes, not from sadness, but from the kind of peace that comes when the heart finally understands forgiveness. She leaned against Liam, whispering, "Maybe my father's love was just lost, not gone." Liam smiled, brushing her hair aside. "Now it's found again." And high above the glowing skyline, the king stood alone on his balcony, the wind soft against his face. He looked toward Brooklyn, toward the train yard, and smiled faintly. "For you, my child," he murmured. "For love, not legacy." The city lights flickered below like 1,000 blessings, and somewhere in the dark, a golden ribbon danced in the breeze, a symbol of love finally set free. Asterisk. Seasons turned softly over New York. Spring melted into summer, and the city bloomed again with music and light. The train yard, once a hiding place, became a memory, a story whispered between two lovers who had dared to choose heart over crown. Alina and Liam had found a tiny apartment in Greenwich Village, small, sunlit, and overflowing with plants and books. The walls were uneven. The floor creaked when they laughed too hard, but it was theirs. Their kingdom. Each morning, Liam fixed clocks and radios in a nearby repair shop, and each evening, Alina painted by the window skylines, rivers and dreams. Sometimes, when the night grew quiet, she would hum the lullaby her father used to sing when she was a little girl. And though the sound faded into the city hum, somewhere far away, a father in a high palace still felt it, soft as forgiveness. One afternoon, as Alina walked through Central Park, a small envelope fluttered onto the path before her. No one was around. Just a single white pigeon resting on a bench nearby. Inside the envelope was a letter, written in her father's careful handwriting. My dearest Alina, the world may never know the choices you made, but I do. You have taught me that love is not rebellion, it is courage. Live your life freely. The throne will wait, but a heart like yours should never be caged. Your father. Her hands trembled as she read. Tears shimmered, but this time they didn't fall. She looked toward the sky, bright blue, endless, and smiled softly. That evening, when Liam came home, she ran into his arms, laughing and crying all at once. He knows, Liam, she whispered. He finally understands. Liam held her close. Then, maybe, this is our true beginning. Outside their window, the city glowed golden. The same city that once tried to keep them apart, now humming like a lullaby beneath their feet. And somewhere far above, on a palace balcony framed by stars, the king looked out over New York, his crown resting beside him, his heart light for the first time in years. He didn't need to rule her life anymore. He only needed to love her quietly, from afar, a father proud of the daughter who had taught him what it really means to be free. Asterisk. Years drifted by like pages turning themselves. New York grew taller, louder, brighter. But inside, a quiet apartment on the corner of 82nd Street, life was calm and golden. Alina sat at her desk one afternoon, typing the final words of her new story. The room smelled of warm tea and spring rain, and laughter filled the air, the soft laughter of a little boy. Mommy, look. He called, his tiny hands holding a paper crown. I'm a king. She smiled and turned to him. Her son, Eli, had Liam's dark hair and her bright, curious eyes. He wore his paper crown with pride, as if he ruled the whole world from that living room. Liam walked in, flour on his hands, wiping them on a towel as he grinned. He had just finished baking bread, something he had learned to do on slow Sundays. Your Majesty. Liam bowed playfully to his son. Shall I serve your royal snack? Eli laughed and nodded, his paper crown slipping down his forehead. Alina watched them both, her heart full of a quiet, grateful ache. This was her kingdom, not made of gold or marble, but of love and small miracles. That evening, after dinner, Eli climbed onto his mother's lap. Mom, he said softly, did you really used to live in a castle? Alina froze for a moment, her fingers brushing his hair. Who told you that? She asked with a gentle smile. I heard Grandma talking on the phone, he said. She said, you ran away from your palace. Alina's eyes softened. She glanced at Liam, who stood quietly in the doorway. Then she took a deep breath. Yes, she said finally. I used to live in a very big house, but it wasn't as warm as this one. There were many people, but not much laughter. Eli thought about that for a while. Did you miss them? Sometimes, she admitted. But then I met your father, and he showed me that love doesn't need a palace. Eli smiled, his eyes sleepy now. Then we can build our own castle, he mumbled, with you and Daddy and me. She kissed his forehead. We already did, my love. Few days later, a royal letter arrived at the New York post office, addressed simply to a heart. The handwriting was old-fashioned, deliberate. When Alina opened it, her hands trembled. It was from her father. He wrote only a few lines, but each one felt like a heartbeat long overdue. My dear Alina, the years have taught me what crowns could not. I was wrong to stand against your heart. Forgive me, if you can. Your son's name reached me through whispers. Eli, my God is light. I hope one day I might see that light for myself. Father. Tears gathered in her eyes. Liam held her hand without a word. Outside, snow began to fall again, just like the night she ran away. Only this time, it didn't feel like an ending. It felt like the beginning of forgiveness. Morning sunlight spilled gently through the window, painting golden ribbons across the wooden floor. New York hummed softly outside, cars moving, pigeons cooing. A city always awake, yet somehow calm in this moment. Alina stood by the window, letter in hand. The king's words echoed in her chest. Forgive me, if you can. She had read them over and over, each time feeling something melt, the years of silence. The pain, the pride. Liam poured coffee quietly, watching her. He didn't ask what she would do. He didn't need to. He simply said, whatever you choose, I'm with you. I think. She whispered, I think Eli should meet his grandfather. Snow fell softly over the gates of the royal estate, the same gates Alina had run from years ago. Her heart racing, her eyes full of tears. Now, she returned, not as a frightened daughter, but as a woman who had found her strength in love. Liam held her hand as they stepped out of the car, and Eli clutched his paper crown, the one he made at home. A butler greeted them at the grand entrance, his voice trembling slightly. Your Majesty is waiting. Inside, the palace was just as Alina remembered. Grand chandeliers, silent halls, and portraits that watched from the walls. But it didn't feel like home. Not yet. At the far end of the great hall stood the king, older, grayer, but with eyes softer than she had ever seen. He took a step forward, then another. Alina, he said quietly. Her name came out like a prayer. She hesitated, then walked toward him. For a long moment, they stood face to face, years of distance and pain between them. Then Eli stepped forward, small and curious, his paper crown slightly crooked. "Are you my grandpa?" he asked softly. The king's lips trembled. He knelt down, the mighty king of New York, kneeling before a child made of love and forgiveness. "Yes, my boy," he whispered, his voice breaking. "Yes, I am." Eli smiled, and without hesitation placed his paper crown on the king's head. "Now you can be the good king," he said simply. Tears filled the old man's eyes. He looked up at Alina, and she saw not a ruler, not a king, but a father who had finally learned what truly mattered. He reached out his hand. Alina hesitated only for a breath, then took it, and in that single touch, the years of anger and distance vanished that night. As they sat by the palace window, Eli asleep between them, the king spoke softly. "I spent half my life protecting my kingdom," he said, "and lost the only treasure that mattered." Alina rested her head on Liam's shoulder. "You didn't lose it," she said. "You just forgot where to look." The king smiled faintly, his eyes glistening in the FIRELIGHT dot outside. Snow continued to fall over New York, the same city that had once torn them apart, now bringing them together again. And somewhere in that quiet snowfall, love had found its way home. Morning light shimmered through tall palace windows, casting long golden lines across the marble floor. The scent of fresh lilies filled the hall, and somewhere in the distance, Eli's laughter echoed, soft, musical, free. Alina stood on the balcony, watching the city below her city. New York was waking up with honking taxis, rushing people, and glowing billboards. The same city where she had fallen in love, where she had found peace, where she had become herself. Behind her, the king entered quietly. He looked healthier, lighter, as though forgiveness had made him years younger. "I haven't seen this view in a long time," he said. "Not like this." "Through your eyes," Alina smiled faintly. "It's beautiful," she said. "It always has been. I just had to learn to see it." The king nodded slowly, his gaze distant, thoughtful. "You know, the council has been asking about you," he said carefully. "They believe the people should know their princess has returned." She turned toward him, surprised. "I don't want to return to titles," she said gently. "I've built a quiet life, a real one. With Liam, with Eli." "I understand," he said softly. "But you must know, Alina, you belong to two worlds now." She looked out again at the skyline, the old palace towers fading into the sea of modern glass. It was true. Part of her was royal, and part of her belonged to the heartbeat of the city below. Later that evening, as snow began to fall again, Alina and Liam sat together in the palace garden. Eli was running around, chasing fireflies, his laughter ringing through the cold air. "Do you ever miss it?" Liam asked quietly. "The life we had before." She thought for a long moment. "I miss the simplicity," she said. "Waking up to the smell of coffee, the sound of traffic, the feeling that every small thing mattered." He smiled. "That's still our life, you know, even if the walls have changed." Alina leaned her head against his shoulder. "What if the king asks us to stay? To live here as a royal family?" Liam took a deep breath. "I'd follow you anywhere," he said simply. "But I think home isn't about where you live. It's about where your heart rests easily." She closed her eyes, letting his words sink deep into her soul. For the first time in years, she wasn't running from anything. Not from duty. Not from love. Not from herself. That night, after Eli fell asleep, Alina found her father sitting in the library. A cup of tea in his hand, an old photograph beside him of her mother. "She would have loved him," he said quietly, nodding toward the photo of Liam and Eli on the table. "She always said, love should make you freer, not smaller." Alina felt her throat tighten. She was right. The king looked at her for a long moment, then said, "You don't have to choose. Alina, be the princess if you wish, but never stop being the woman who found herself in the streets of New York." He reached across the table and took her hand, not as a king, but as a father. "Go where your heart feels at peace," he whispered. "I will always be waiting when you wish to return." Tears filled her eyes. In that moment, she knew exactly what she needed to do. The sun rose quietly over New York, turning the sky from silver to gold. Snow melted from the palace rooftops, and the city's hum returned soft, steady. Alive, Alina stood by the same balcony where she had once stared at the skyline as a young girl, dreaming of freedom, wondering if love could exist outside of walls and rules. Now she knew it could, because she had lived it. Behind her, Liam approached, Eli half asleep in his arms, his little head resting on his father's shoulder. "Morning," Liam said gently. "Big day today." She smiled. "Yes, our new beginning." A few hours later, they met the king in the grand hall. Sunlight streamed through stained glass, casting colors across the marble floor. He stood tall, not as the ruler of a kingdom, but as a man who had learned how to let go. "Father," Alina began softly, "I will always love this place, the gardens, the memories, the stories written in these walls. But my heart doesn't belong to the crown. It belongs to the life I built, to the man I love, to the little boy who calls me mom, to the world beyond these gates." The king nodded slowly, his eyes full of understanding and pride. He stepped forward, took her hands in his, and said, "Then rule that world, my daughter, with kindness not titles. With love, not power. Tears glistened in her eyes. Liam bowed his head respectfully, and even Eli, sensing the moment, stood quietly between them. The king knelt to Eli's height. "My little prince," he whispered, "take care of your mother. You have her heart. That is the greatest crown of all." Eli smiled and handed his paper crown to his grandfather once more. "This one's yours," he said sweetly. "I made a new one." The king chuckled softly, tears escaping down his wrinkled cheeks. That afternoon, Alina, Liam, and Eli left the palace. The royal car drove them back into the heartbeat of New York, past Central Park, past the bridges, back to the little brownstone they called home. Inside, the familiar smell of bread baking filled the air. Eli ran straight to his room to draw, while Alina stood by the window, watching snowflakes fall slowly to the street below. Liam came up behind her and wrapped his arms around her waist. They stood there silently for a long time, the city glowing, the world softening, their hearts completely at peace. "This," she whispered, "this is my kingdom." He kissed her forehead. "And I'm the luckiest king in the world." As night fell over the city, the lights sparkled like 1,000 stars caught between skyscrapers. Alina tucked Eli into bed, his paper crown resting on the nightstand beside him. She whispered softly, "Sleep now, my little prince. Dream of kindness, of courage, of love that never gives up." She turned off the lamp. The room filled with calm, the kind of peace that feels like a lullaby outside. New York sighed and shimmered, alive with stories. And somewhere high above, a single star blinked as if it, too, was smiling down on the girl who had once been a princess and had become something far greater, a woman who chose love. And now, as the story fades into quiet night, let your heart rest. You've walked through the snow of New York, heard the laughter of a child, and felt the warmth of love that no crown could ever replace. Breathe slowly, in and out. Your body feels heavy, safe, and calm. All your worries are far away now. Only peace remains. You are surrounded by soft light. The world outside is still and gentle. You are ready to fall into deep, soothing sleep. So close your eyes a little tighter. Let the calmness of the story stay with you. Let your mind drift into dreams of kindness, of courage, of endless love. Good night. Sleep well. Sleep deeply and dream softly.